In 2032, society faces a grim reality. Environmental decay, food shortages, and dwindling supplies have thrown the world into chaos. In London, Chaplain Peter visits his wife, B, at the hospital to say a heartbreaking farewell before she undergoes euthanasia. Days later, Peter is back with his church organization, distributing food to those in desperate need, when he's unexpectedly approached by Vivian, the head of mission resources at USIC, an encounter that promises to change his life in ways he can't yet imagine. When Peter hears the name of the company, he's ready to walk away, but he stops as soon as Vivian mentions she was sent by Morgan, the co-owner of the company and Peter's old friend. Morgan, she explains, wants Peter to join the Oasis Project, the initiative to establish humanity's first permanent colony on a distant, desert-like exoplanet. The offer baffles Peter. He and B had always opposed the Oasis Project from the start. Sensing his doubt, Vivian explains that circumstances have changed, as she reveals a mysterious transmission they received from the colony, something urgent enough to shift everything he thought he knew about the mission. Morgan appears on the screen, confessing that Peter had been right. The Oasis Project was never solely about saving Earth. It held a purpose far greater than Peter could have imagined. That's precisely why they needed a spiritual guide on the base, and Morgan believed only Peter could fill that role. Despite this appeal, Peter remains hesitant, but Vivian's final offer breaks his resolve. The company is willing to make a substantial donation to his church, empowering the organization to expand and help more people in desperate need. After much contemplation, Peter accepts the job and is transported to the company's facility in a private car. On the way, however, they're attacked by an enraged crowd protesting against corporations funneling resources into private ventures while Earth suffers. When Peter finally arrives, the company subjects him to a series of rigorous tests to ensure his body can withstand the physically taxing journey to the far reaches of the galaxy. Fortunately, the exams are standard, nothing more than what a hospital would typically require. Peter becomes uneasy when the doctors administer a word association test, showing him pictures and, shockingly, a recording of B, something he has no idea how they obtained. Finally, on the day of departure, he meets the rest of the crew, including Sai, a botanist he quickly befriends. Due to the journey's length and risks, the entire crew must enter an induced coma to preserve muscle tissue. As the spaceship lifts off, Peter drifts into sleep, his mind replaying memories of B, even her final moments. The spaceship arrives at Oasis amidst a fierce sandstorm, but local workers, highly organized and efficient, promptly collect the crew, transporting them safely to the base in their rugged rovers. On the way to the base, Peter notices 3 graves outside, stirring an uneasy curiosity. Once inside, the crew is greeted by Paul, who hands out energy drinks while security officer Sarah meticulously reviews the crew list, her confusion evident as she questions Peter's presence in place of an engineer. Peter explains he's a chaplain sent by Morgan, and at the mention of Morgan's name, Sarah exchanges a tense glance with BG before hurrying off to confer with Vikram, the chief executive. Vikram, already deep in a meeting, stresses to the team that no further drilling will happen until Morgan returns, despite the plant's urgent need for water, a directive that seems to weigh heavily on everyone. Vikram isn't pleased to hear about Peter's unexpected presence, instructing Sarah to investigate him further. Meanwhile, Peter sheds his astronaut suit, hoping to shower after the long journey, only to learn water is too scarce to allow it. BG explains that drilling for water has been halted because the surface is too hard, leaving supplies critically low. Paul steps in, leading Peter to a shower stall where he cleans him off with a blue foam substitute instead. While Peter undergoes his makeshift wash, Sarah seizes the chance to discreetly rummage through his bag, intent on confirming his identity. After the foam shower, the new arrivals are taken to see Dr. Severin, who administers an injection to help their bodies adapt to the oxygen blend and implants a tracker in their arms, explaining it's essential for the company to monitor their whereabouts. She also warns of possible vision impairment due to atmospheric pressure on the optic nerve, which could lead to hallucinations and headaches. During dinner, the newcomers are disheartened to find the food almost as bad as prison rations. Meanwhile, Sarah reports to Vikram that Peter seems genuine, prompting Vikram to stand and deliver a speech about their colony of dreams. A phrase BG mutters is more like nightmares. After emphasizing the need for teamwork, Vikram gives a special welcome to Peter and invites him to say a few words. Though some seem unsure about having a chaplain among them, Peter quickly earns their respect with a heartfelt speech, praising each of them as inspiring for sacrificing time with their families for the greater good of humanity. He assures them he'll always be there if anyone needs a listening ear. Afterward, BG guides Peter to his small, sparse room, where he's pleasantly surprised to find a computer for sending emails home and messaging others within the base. Before leaving, BG hands Peter some sleep medicine, cautioning him that lack of sleep can lead to serious problems here. Just as BG is about to go, Peter asks about Morgan's whereabouts, and BG vaguely gestures toward the window, saying Morgan is out there somewhere. Later, as Sarah sends messages to her daughter Frida from her office, Peter receives a mysterious message from an unknown sender. The message is just one line, yet it strikes a familiar chord in Peter's mind. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the light, a verse from the Bible. By the time the sun rises, the sandstorm has cleared, giving Peter the opportunity to explore outside. He notices the multiple moons in the sky and once again spots the graves. Curious about the machines, he approaches Alice, who explains the basics of their work and shows him the drones that are always following them. She somberly adds that they'll never return to Earth. When Peter asks about Morgan, Alice remains silent and questions why Peter was told about this place at all. Their conversation is cut short when BG arrives to inform Peter that Vikram is looking for him. As Peter leaves, BG, puzzled, wonders why they sent a chaplain, to which Alice coldly replies, funerals. On his way to Vikram's office, Peter passes by Morgan's room and overhears two men rifling through Morgan's things under Vikram's orders, searching for anything strange. As they talk, they mention that Morgan is apparently going crazy, and Peter notices the same Bible quote from the message written on the wall before the men spot him and quickly close the door. When Peter finally reaches Vikram's office, the conversation takes a tense turn as Vikram asks him what Morgan said to convince him to come. Already feeling suspicious, Peter responds coolly, saying that Morgan just wanted a man of God on the base. Vikram presses Peter again about Morgan's whereabouts, but when he tries to downplay it by saying Morgan is just exploring, Peter reveals he knows they're searching Morgan's room. Cornered, Vikram admits they haven't heard from Morgan in over a week. Meanwhile, Sarah is out for a run among the dunes when she is stunned to see Frida, her daughter, appearing in the distance. Despite knowing it's likely a hallucination, hearing her daughter call her mommy compels Sarah to follow, and this leads her to Morgan's abandoned rover, half sunk in the sand with a blood stain on the windshield. Sarah finds Morgan's bag still at the rover, so she calls Vikram to report her discovery. Meanwhile, back at the base, Peter tries to focus on his work, attempting to ignore the persistent drone that follows him around. He's assigned a media room, but it's in disarray, and he'll have to clean it up on his own. When Sarah returns to the base, she shows Vikram the contents of Morgan's bag, a box filled with enough medicine to treat an army, a card with strange doodles, and several postcards featuring beautiful religious art. Sarah insists they should send a search party for Morgan, but Vikram argues that since Morgan removed his tracker, it would be a waste of resources. He suggests it's best to assume Morgan is dead and announces they'll resume drilling in the morning. Sarah refuses to stand by this decision, reminding Vikram that her job is to ensure everyone's safety. However, Vikram dismisses her objections, reminding her that she once lost her detective job for not respecting orders, a mistake she can't afford to repeat. After Sarah leaves, Vikram turns to his computer, monitoring the security cameras to keep an eye on Peter, who is now visited by Paul, seeking a friendly ear. Paul opens up about his childhood, recalling how he loved horses and even bought a foal, hoping it would grow up to race. However, his dream took a tragic turn when he trusted a shady vet who administered performance enhancers that ended up killing the horse. The poor animal screamed in agony, and Paul had to make the heartbreaking decision to put it down as an act of mercy, a memory that continues to haunt him. Peter tries to offer Paul some advice to help him move past his mistakes, but Paul quickly interrupts, confessing that he still sees the horse on this planet all the time. He doesn't believe these are hallucinations. There's something here, something that's affecting everyone, making them see things and causing accidents. He points out that the 3 men who have died so far all saw something that distracted them before they met their end. When Peter asks what Morgan had to say about it, Paul glances at the security camera and suggests he ask Sarah, who conducted the investigation into the deaths. Afterward, Peter sneaks into Sarah's office to examine Morgan's bag, discovering a tube of blood and the religious postcards. Sarah catches him in the act and scolds him, but Peter refuses to be intimidated, pressing her with questions. Unfortunately, Sarah remains evasive, claiming she doesn't know what happened to Morgan and insisting the 3 deaths were merely accidents. In turn, Sarah reveals she's found Peter's old criminal record, hoping to unsettle him. But Peter remains unfazed, calmly explaining that meeting his wife had changed his life and that it was she who had brought him to God. That night, BG is plagued by the haunting vision of his father outside his window, unable to sleep. So he seeks out Severin for something stronger and asks if he can stay in her room, purely for the company. The next day, as Paul resumes drilling, he's distracted by the sudden appearance of his old horse, an apparition he mistakes for reality. Drawn to it, Paul approaches the horse, trying to touch it, but in his distraction, he gets too close to the drill and is severely injured. The workers quickly rush Paul to Severin, who struggles to treat his severe wounds as he murmurs about seeing his horse again, but the damage from the drill is too much to repair. Holding Paul's hand, Peter offers a prayer for his soul as the man dies, his final moments filled with memories of his beloved horse. When Sarah learns of the incident, she storms out of the room, cursing in frustration, unable to cope with the tragedy. Alice, equally disturbed by the events, takes Peter to her room and reveals a special message left by Morgan, telling her to show it to Peter only if she trusted him, a trust she now places in him. The message Morgan left is an audio clip where he marvels at something, but it's interrupted by a strange voice repeatedly chanting Jesus Christ, before Morgan urges Peter to find him and ends with the same Bible quote from earlier. Meanwhile, Vikram convenes a meeting to announce Paul's death, labeling it an accident, but this time, no one is willing to accept that explanation. The crew has seen Paul deliberately reach for the drill, and in a moment of clarity, BG interrupts, asserting that the planet is toying with their minds and that they don't belong there, his words hanging heavy in the room. As the crew confronts the unsettling truth that everyone has been seeing things they shouldn't, Sai reminds them of the supposed side effects Severin warned them about upon arrival. But Severin, clearly exhausted by the situation, admits that those side effects were just a lie Morgan had her spread after the first death to cover up the truth. Furious, the crew demands answers, and with no way to control them, Vikram imposes a new rule: nobody leaves the building until further notice. Meanwhile, Sarah, noticing that Peter hasn't attended the meeting, grows concerned and begins searching for him. Alice secretly gives Peter access to Morgan's room, where he discovers a detailed map with coordinates hidden beneath a Bible quote that's only visible when the lights are off. Desperate for answers, Peter rushes outside to board a rover, but Sarah, weary of the constant visions of her daughter, allows him to leave, hoping to uncover the truth together. Meanwhile, Vikram finally sends a message to Earth, reporting Morgan's disappearance and invoking Article 76 to assume command of the base, determined to protect it from the mysterious deaths that have plagued them. Sarah visits Peter, pretending she couldn't find him, but he's already entered the coordinates into the GPS and is driving through the vast desert. After a tense journey, he discovers a path lined with black rocks that leads him to a cave. Inside, Peter is stunned to find a group of people, including none other than B, his wife, alive and seemingly waiting for him.